everybody, and welcome to Thrashcast. Man, we're on our 17th episode. I mean, the guys were just talking about that. That's mind-blowing, guys. Wow.
Yep.
Getting old.
Time flies.
Yep.
It
A lot of
does.
talk.
17, and I want to wish everybody, we're doing a bit of a special episode. Well, they're all special because we're all talking about thrash, but this one's kind of, we're recording this right around Canada Day and releasing it right after Canada Day. So want to wish everybody a happy Canada Day. And, we're going to be digging into one of our Canadian big four bands, Razor, and one of their top albums that I think we can all agree on to some degree, that Evil Invaders. So, but before we do that, I just want to welcome my two guests, Billy and Ken, who are my co-hosts. They're not guests. What am I saying? Jeez, God, what's wrong with me here? Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yep. Welcome.
Just a little bit of, some house cleaning here. To check out our podcasts, you want to check them out at online at www.horrormetalsounds.com, and definitely on YouTube at Horror Metal Sounds at KenG.2864. Plus, we're available on Spotify. So many different ways, many different avenues where you can watch and listen to us. And we appreciate everybody's support so far. The views continuously go up, and we're just really happy to be doing this and being able to talk metal with everybody on a weekly basis. I mean, thrash metal. What's better than that?
Not much.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do you guys got? What do you guys got for news? So we'll start off this part of the podcast with what we're maybe listening to, or if you've got any news. Ken, why don't you take it away?
Sure. So the big announcement, of course, happened earlier this week, so I'll officially announce it here, but we have released our second Horror Metal Flashbacks episode number 2, which went up on the weekend, and we are covering Anthrax, again, my favorite band. So a lot of it's just Anthrax's, maybe a bit more in-depth look at Anthrax's influences with comic books and horror films and the connection to Stephen King. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it, please do. It's like about a 10-minute video. We've been getting a lot of good response for it since we've uploaded it over the weekend. And it's great. It's a great segue because you can watch that and then you can go right into watching our Anthrax podcast when we did for Among the Living. And we've noticed that people are going back to watch it. So that's kind of huge for us. And yeah, that's all I have for that. But one more thing I'll add is we just posted our review for Cavalera's Schizophrenia that Jim here has written for us. So that's gone up last week. So if you want to hear his thoughts about that, you please do. Just go to horrormetalsounds.com. We have it posted up there in our Thrashcast section, and you can check out his review. But that's it for me.
Jimmy's on fire. What do you got there, Jimmy? 2 or 3 up there now?
Yeah, there's a couple up there now. Yeah,
he's got 2.
Yeah, and I'm just to give something away. I'm going to be doing a review of the Annihilator live stream that happened the Saturday past, which I got to be honest. Oh man, it's awesome. I'm not going to give I don't really want to even talk about it because I don't want to give anything away because there's been a lot of top secret stuff, that was discussed on that. So I'm going to put it in the review for Horror Metal Sounds, and everybody will be able to read what went on. So it's going to be awesome.
Cool.
Top secret. Now,
there's some good funny stories there. Funny stories that Jeff talks about. So some great stuff, and some great reminiscing. That it was really cool. I'll just say this: I think it was about 2.5 hours long. And I already put on my Facebook prior to, just as it finished, because I was so excited. They did 4 bonus tracks as well as the whole album for Alice in Hell, which everybody knew was happening. And but there's some great stories there about Randy Rampage and and everything and how they made the album. And I mean, they talked for about an hour prior to. It was really well done, and wow, it was just mind blowing. So I can't wait to write this. I've got it half done already. Hopefully get it up sooner than later, and we'll get that going. But you know,
Awesome.
Ken, about the Anthrax, I hear
Yeah.
like there was 3 guest appearances by some good-looking dudes.
Yeah, yes, sir. So if you watch the video, you'll see the Thrashcast alumni, or us 3 in the video. So
That was wicked.
I'm glad you guys approved.
I guess we're both alumni and current members and only members, but
That's true.
that works.
That works. Yeah, that's true.
Billy, what have you got for us?
So 2 items. So the first, what's spinning? So I know this doesn't meet the official thrash definition, but it definitely has some thrashy components to it.
Oh,
But I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
stop listening to it. Right, the new
wow.
200 Stab
Yeah,
Wound.
that's amazing.
What was that, like last week it came out, or the week
Friday.
before? Yeah. And it's a bit of a mouthful. Manual Manic Procedure.
Yeah.
Procedures it's called. So yeah, this is killer. So obviously death
Yeah.
metal, as we know, but definitely the cool artwork too, of course. But a lot of the riffing's quite thrashy. I
Thrashy.
know
Yeah.
the 3 of us were kind of chatting a little bit. So yeah, I think, you know, if you're obviously you got to be a death metal fan to like it. If you hate death metal, you're not going to like it, but really cool, right? And there's a few little surprises, a little some musical twists and turns. Yeah, I think it's good progression from their last album, which I loved as well. So yeah, be sure to check that out. And I can't recommend those guys live enough. They are just
Yes.
fantastic live, like brutal, intense. Like Ken and I were at a show together not too long ago, but you know, it's a funny story. The band, like, they get on stage and they're like, you know, the merch tables were beside the crowd, and they were like, "Please be careful of the merch tables. Please be careful." And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I've never heard a band do that before. But then, like, you know, when the merch table's in the same room in the same area as like the whole crowd erupted into the most massive
Yeah.
bit. So
Wicked.
now I know why they said that. But so yeah, that was pretty cool. And then in terms of a news item, so not all new. I mentioned this at least once before. So the Canadian band, which may or may not make an appearance tonight later on, in terms of top 10 albums, DBC, Dead Brain Cells. They released 2 new songs coming up from their new album. One is called Pendulum. It's about 3.5 minutes, and the other, Sirens, had about 4 minutes. So it was interesting. Like, I was dying to hear it. So the last we heard was their album Universe, which sort of had the tech thrash, like the musicianship was completely off the charts. And so I guess in my mind, I thought we'd just roll off of that. So this is a bit different. Like, you definitely hear like the strong musicianship is there. Like, there's some great leads and some interesting, you know, musical changes and twists and turns. Maybe it's not like as heavy as I remember it. Some of the vocals are a little bit more traditional metal at times, but I still like. I've been listening to it throughout the day, and the songs are really starting to stick on me. My first listen was a bit of, well, this is really different, just because I didn't know what to expect. But yeah, they're starting to grow on me. They're actually well crafted songs. You might just need 1 or 2 listens to have it sink in. So they're on all the streaming channels. So yeah, by all means, check those out.
Wicked.
Did
Yeah,
you
no.
hear it?
Sorry?
Did you guys hear those songs yet, or not
Yeah.
yet?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave them. Yeah, I didn't mind it. It's a little bit different, but
It's
it's
different.
growing
Yeah.
on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's growing on me too. I heard it a bunch of times. Like, oh, it's all right. I'll buy the album when it comes out for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, that's for sure. So yeah, I've been spinning. Well, the only news I had was bringing up about the Annihilator stream. So, and I'm going to leave that for the actual review that we're going to be doing at Horror Metal Sound. So, but I've, you know, this Schizophrenia album by Cavalera, you know, the Sepultura sort of redo. There's an extra, you know, so for everybody to check this out, because wow, it is mind blowing. You got to read the review, because there's not an extra song. Well, there's an extra song that takes over, from an original song, they brought out a different one. So definitely check it out. It's worth it. I mean, and Ken, the artwork for that album is, I mean, I talk about it briefly, but that is phenomenal. Total upgrade. So
yeah, I like that. I like the artwork. I like both covers, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and what I'm spinning this week, well, I've been spinning a lot of Canadian stuff just with Canada Day and getting ready for our podcast. But one of the things that actually Billy had brought up, God, last year when we were doing some other podcasts, but I've been listening to this here, Martyr, Feeding the Abscess. I've got 2 albums by them now, but this one is just amazing. And I think, Billy, you told me to get this last year, and I picked it up 2006. And for those who don't really know, it's Dan Mongrain, Chewy from Voivod, and his brother band prior to him. I believe, Billy, was it prior to him going to Voivod?
Yeah, it's before Voivod.
Yeah. And this is a Montreal, like a Quebec-based band. Yeah, and I mean, you obviously are a huge fan.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, they're fantastic, right? And I'm like a big technical thrash, technical death metal guy, right? So these guys know how to play. They play their asses off on these. All the albums are great. Like that's the last one they did.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So they reformed recently for like with Voivod, and all the Quebec bands did like a show like way out there in Quebec recently, a festival, and so they went on, and yeah, like it was the crowds were crazy for them. I guess they become even more popular now that everyone knows Dan and Voivod, but they were always huge on the Quebec scene. But yeah, the musicianship is just outstanding on these albums.
Wicked. Yeah, no, you got me into kind of they had flown under my radar. I mean, being on the East Coast, I didn't ever really hear of them much. And then I knew that Dan came from a band called Martyr, but I didn't know actually the genesis. So that was actually pretty cool. So no, and I've been spinning it like crazy. Been spinning a lot of Annihilator and a lot of Rush. I mean, I've been picking up all kinds of, I'm addicted to live Rush albums. So I've been sort of kind of shopping for those and picking them up. So, which, you can't go wrong with. So.
Oh yeah, no, they're amazing.
Yeah.
But cool. So we're going to do, obviously we're talking about this album. We're going to be talking about this album, Evil Invaders by Razor. We usually start off with just a couple of quick questions, maybe just about the band or about whatever that we bring up. One of the questions is, what would you guys rank? Like, we have the Canadian Thrash top 4, big 4 for Canada. Where would you rank these guys? And what would you replace any of the 4? Or even like we talk about the American big 4 all the time. And we talk about who we might switch out with some of the kind of the big 8 as we've kind of come up with. Would there be anything like a big 6 in your guys' mind? Or how would you at least rank these guys in the big 4? Bill, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so of course the 4 is I assume we're all going to refer to the same original big Canadian 4 thrash, but Voivod, Razor, Sacrifice, and Annihilator. So I actually think that's right. Like I think if I was going to name a big 4, like I remember I once put on a post, those are our Canadian big 4, and someone, or it was a review, a review I did, and somebody took my head off because I didn't have Exciter on there. But Exciter is a little bit more speed metal, right? Like so. If you're gonna follow the definition, like I'm okay with Exciter not being there, and people are like, well, the 3 of the bands have been. Annihilator is the newbie, right? I guess on that list, whereas Exciter was there, going back much earlier. But again, I'll take them out just because I view them a bit more speed metal than thrash. And I don't know that I would add or I'd expand it, like to call it the big 4, because in my eyes, to be the big 4, you need to have a certain number of albums and kind of be around long enough, right? So, like, and Jim, I don't know if you mentioned it, but we're going to rank our top 10 Canadian thrash albums.
Right.
And so, certainly these bands are going to be on my list, but then so will another 6 or 7 that's not in that big four. But I thought about this, like in almost every case, that 6 or 7 only has maybe one album, maybe two, and they were only around for a couple years, like not
True.
decades like these other bands. So I guess, and then who would come to mind? Maybe like Aggression, who was around, like, one of, in the mid 80s in Montreal doing thrash. Infernal Majesty maybe would be another one, like, or maybe DBC, but they only did 2 albums. So
True.
I think the 4 is right, and I wouldn't add to it, to be honest.
Wicked. What's your thoughts, Ken?
I think I would maybe add Entropy to the list, but they've had some success outside of Canada. But yeah, Billy is pretty correct. I think really that's the 4 when you think about it in terms of like international success. Yeah, all 4 bands are known outside of Canada. Exciter, yeah, I don't think I was thinking about Exciter earlier, but yeah, I think they are more speed metal. Now, some of their later albums are a bit more thrashier, but they tend to stick to the more of like a speed metal, somewhat thrash. But I think 4, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just 4. I can't think of anyone else really to add to that list in terms of where they've been, what they've done, the output for albums, because they've all 4 bands have a really well, maybe Sacrifice has less than the other 3, but they've all put out decent albums, and they're all well known.
Yeah,
and they've all been well received. Annihilators pretty much, and Voivod are the 2 most well known of the 4. I think Razor was for a time, but then they broke up and disappeared, and they didn't come back until Cycle of Contempt, last year or the year before.
Yeah.
So and Sacrifice is the same. They were around, broke up, came back together, put out an album, and are just rumored to be putting out a new album this year. So 2 of the 4 are the 2 most notable, Annihilator and Voivod. But anyone else? No, not really.
No, I don't think so.
I know.
Like, how many albums did Entropy do, Ken? I
3.
forget.
They have 3.
Yeah.
And Forced Convergence was their last album, which they just did a couple of years ago. So
yeah.
But I think they're the same. They had a couple albums out, then they disappeared too, and then came back because they actually formed in the late 80s, early 90s, because their first album is 1992.
Right.
So so they kind of came at the tail end of when thrash was kind of like on its way out for a bit. But I don't think you can add any more bands.
My other question is, what do you guys think like Canada's metal thrash output compares to, say, other countries? I know, like, and I'll say mine first just quickly. And when I brought up this question, I was thinking in my mind, like, there's so much, we obviously have the Teutonic 4, we've got the American Big 4, we've got the Canadian Big 4. So, and then we have all kinds of other, all kinds of thrash bands coming from all over the world, everywhere. So, and now we have sort of a blackened thrash that has morphed from maybe the convergence of a little bit of death metal and thrash. So it's kind of even maybe a genre splicing even further. But, for me, I think it's pretty cool when you watch so many interviews and they talk, a lot of big name bands out there, especially like, God, right across the board from any sort of Norwegian black metal band, always talks about like a Voivod, has always been, their, some of their, why they got into it. They referenced Voivod, Annihilator. It's massively huge, I think, in Europe. And I think, Ken, you brought that up when we were chatting over the weekend and that. And Sacrifice they're so well respected, as well with Razor, throughout the whole, I find everybody's, like, when Sacrifice goes on tour, everybody's super excited about it and gets all jazzed up. And, I think Razor played some shows last year at the Piranha Bar there in Montreal. I think it's in Montreal. And I think they played with Whiplash, actually. And just so much. What do you guys think? Do you think there's we've got a good representation, and I'm not just talking thrash. I'm talking metal, heavy metal and thrash. What's your guys' think like on a world sort of stage, so to speak? Ken, you take this one first.
Yeah, I think we're good. I mean, if you're just putting aside all the thrash bands, but if you're talking about like adding bands like Rush,
Yeah,
for example, to that list, or like even not even just metal, like even just like Bryan Adams, and there's like in terms of being musical, a musical representation, yeah, I think Canada's been good. I don't know if we're the best country, but I mean,
no,
I think we can compete with, I think, any other country, whether it's in Europe or even with the States. So yeah, like even Triumph from Rush. Yeah, there's just so many bands out there, and not even just like Nas the Slash, for example, and FM, and there's so many bands that are Canadian or like Kim Mitchell. Like I think our
yeah,
representation just in general is fairly good. Now on the metal side, well, metal I think is okay. There aren't as I mean, there are a lot of newer metal bands out now in Canada, but I don't think they get the same has the same cachet as the bands we were talking about earlier. But I'd say we have a fairly healthy reputation internationally.
what are your thoughts, Bill?
Well, I have some strong thoughts on this one. So yeah, I actually think we do quite well in terms of quantity and quality. But now this is where you might call me biased, but I'm like born and raised in Montreal. So I think there's one thing Canada does best when it comes to metal, and it ranks up there with anyone in the world, I think, as a body of work. It's sort of the technical or progressive metal. So whether that be death metal or whether that be thrash, right? So it kind of started with Voivod, but then you've got like bands like Gorguts and Martyr and Critopsy and Cataclysm and Beyond Creation, DBC, Oblivion, Despised Icon. The list goes on and on. Like when it comes to technical thrash and technical death metal, personally, I think Quebec is one of the best spots in the world. Like, and all these musicians play from these bands on like technical metal albums from bands in other countries. They always pop up on their album. So I think you'd be hard pressed to say some of these bands aren't major influences for like everybody across the world when it comes to technical stuff. So yeah, I would say the Quebec technical metal scene is amongst the best in the world when it comes to a very specific a type of metal. So I think that puts us on the map, right? So it started with Voivod, but even today, right? Like it just goes on and on the list who have that progressive and technical slant. So I think that's pretty cool. And while we're still on Montreal, I mean, it's the only city I know where city council actually passed the bylaw saying declaring Montreal the heavy metal city. So that's pretty damn cool. Like if you're on YouTube, you just go and YouTube Montreal City of Metal, and you'll see the actual vote in city council and all the guys talking about their favorite like bands, metal bands who play there. So that's a bit off topic, but so yeah, I think that's where we really shine. But obviously, lots of bands from Toronto and Vancouver and like all over the place, no doubt. But I do think the concentration is in Quebec, guaranteed. And then the other emerging scene that Canada is really starting to stand out for, and I see this whenever I'm in Europe at the festivals, is the new wave of traditional metal. I mean, our bands are really up there, right? So I'm talking Riot City, I'm talking Traveler. Like all these bands have been at all the festivals I'm going to in Germany, the US, and they're playing to massive crowds, like Skullfist and Cauldron and Striker. And like these are like, there's this whole, next wave of, the new wave of traditional heavy metal. And Canada is playing like a massive spot in that. And those bands are doing so incredibly well. So yeah, I say the scene's very healthy and doing really well. I'm proud to say I'm from Canada when it comes to metal.
Wicked. Yeah, no, and you, I mean, you're seeing it at the festivals and stuff, and the Canadian bands are very well received.
Oh yeah,
Like,
like when I was at Wacken last year, a massive crowd there for Riot City, and there
Yeah.
were like these 3 or 4 German guys, like probably in their 50s, same age as us, and all of a sudden Riot City came out with a Canadian flag, and they're like, "Hey, it's a long trip from Canada, so show us some love." And everyone was standing there like, "What? These guys are from Canada? Like what?"
Yeah.
Nobody knew that, but yeah, like often people don't know where the bands, or they tend to assume they're American bands if they're English, right? But yeah, no, like I just see that, and even I walk around like the festivals, like even Wacken will have a lot of the old timers, metal fans, but I always see we're talking about Razor. I'm always amazed how many Razor patches I'll see on a battle vest. So yeah, the Europeans always loved their metal, and when it died, when it slowed down here in North America, they kept going strong. So,
wicked.
yeah, I think we're in great shape, the Canadian metal scene.
Awesome. Great. Well, great discussion, guys. That's some good topics there for sure. So we're gonna jump into the actual album for Razor, Evil Invaders. Beforehand, I'll give just a very quick bio. Razor's from Guelph, Ontario, so good Ontario metal band for sure. Formed in 1983. Obviously, we've spoke about this. They're part of the Big Four with Sacrifice, Voivod, and Annihilator. As both Billy and Ken attested to, there's always a little pushback there with Exciter, but those are the general the general top four, the Big Four that everybody talks about. They are originally started off with Dave Carlo, Bob Reed, Mike Campbellano, and Ryder Johnson. For this album, we're looking at that was the original lineup for this album. So they had a split in 1992 to 1996, and then they hadn't really re-released anything from 97 to 2022 with Cycle of Contempt. So a little bit of a definite kind of a very big hole there in the career, and I think that's what, like, when you're just Billy, you brought it up when you're talking about a Big Four. You're talking about lots of albums. So, and these guys have 9 studio albums, and only one in the last so many years. So it's very important that these guys had a big kind of a space between albums there. The cover art of the album is kind of neat. It's kind of has a Terminator cyborg type humanoid on a motorcycle, kind of reminiscent of the actual Terminator. The artwork is done by Peter Dominski. I'm not sure, Ken, if you have anything to add there for the artwork.
Actually, the cover art is actually done by Gary Cooper.
Oh, is it? Okay, my mistake.
Yeah, Gary Cooper did the art on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
he
that
hasn't did
before
much.
or after the Terminator came out, that album?
It came after Terminator.
Oh, okay.
Terminator was 84, so this came out the year. That's why people compare it to Terminator, and it kind of looks like, I think it is, obviously, to some degree. But I think it's good art. I kind of like it. It's reminiscent of like Judas Priest kind of style, kind of like bright colors done with an airbrush. For me, anyways, I like it. I think it's. Some people say it's cheesy, but I like that cover actually.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's the second. This is the second album. Their first album came out in '85 as well with Executioner's Song. So, and then another album that came out after this, which they were hitting their stride by the time they hit this album, which was Malicious Intent, which was another super popular album of the time, and they were starting to get really, and then they went into Custom Killing and albums like that. I think. By this album and by the third album, they really started to hit the ground running and became kind of a force to be reckoned with. So with that, we're going to jump right into the album. And the first track on it is Nowhere Fast, which is actually an instrumental. And Ken, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, this is an okay instrumental. It has like a solid heavy chug right at the start. like it has. The one thing I noticed about this band is that they just like sticking to a one kind of steady tempo throughout all the songs. There isn't a lot of variation, not like what we heard when we talked last week about Death Angel and how they were constantly changing the tempo and all kinds of little like just little moments that made it interesting. This band, not so much, not so much. So like, I would say it's a certifiable moshing masterpiece for sure. This song, I know what people would love to mosh to. There's a one nice tempo change halfway through, which I don't mind, but I think it's an okay song, but it's not something that I want to come back to hear many times. I don't know. This is my thought, but
What's your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I guess right off the start, like the elephant in the room, like why are we starting off with like a full instrumental? Is a bit
that's
odd.
true. Yeah.
So that never totally felt right, but like I agree with Ken. Like it's one dimensional in a sense, but not to be negative. But like
No.
I don't even think we get like a real full-fledged guitar solo in this, right? It's the main riffs that are playing, and yeah, I think at like the 220 mark is Ken what you were talking about, where the kind of tempo change kicks in at the
Yeah.
halfway. Kind of like a machine gun riffing, drumming kind of style that kicks in, but yeah, no, so I don't dislike it. Like I don't love it. Like it's good. Like I would have stuck it in the middle somewhere, rather than open the album with it. And I would have preferred like a guitar solo or two. But yeah. And then it's kind of interesting. The song just kind of ends dead at the very end, right? It's like
Yeah.
someone pulled a plug out of the recording machine. So but yeah, so yeah, I think it would be better suited elsewhere on the album.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, it's kind of got a weird spot coming out of the gate with that, considering there's so much more better material on the album. But
Mm.
I think it's a good pounding thrash song. I think what they were probably trying to do was maybe set a tone that but again, yeah, there's no solo on this. It's just kind of a continuous riff or riffs that just keep kind of building, and then it just kind of stops. And being at almost 4.5 minutes long, I think it's pretty risky. We're only heading into this is only their second album, so to start it off like that and go from there, you're kind of wondering what exactly where it's going to go from there. So, but we head into track number 2. Bill, why don't you take us into "Cross Me Fool"?
Yeah, so this is yeah, I like this better than the first track. And so yeah, like vocalist Stace, he has like some really good screams here, right? So
Yeah.
I'll kind of call that out. And he can really do some, I actually like it, the cool high-pitched screams. Like Ken, you brought up the ultra violence. Like in a way, he kind of gets up in that like super
Yeah.
upper screeching
He
range
does.
like
Yeah.
Mark does, right?
Mhm.
So you hear that quite a bit on the album, so that was cool. But again, like musically, it's it's gonna follow along with the first track, right? You get some cool chugging riffs. The there's some guitar solo in this track as well. Nothing like super extensive, but then again, it's only a three minute and 15-second song, so you can only sort of go so far with it. But the drum sounds pretty big on the track, so that's kind of cool. I remember, have you guys ever read this? I wish I should have re-looked it up before we started, but I remember there was always Lars of Metallica was sort of on record on this album, like insulting the drum sound, and I just thought that was kind of funny because, like, of all people who has like a lame drum sound every now and then, it's Lars. So,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, so solid song. Like it's got singing. It's not as good as the next like 3, 4, or 5 that'll come next, but it's
Mm.
solid track.
Mm.
What's your thoughts, Ken?
Uh, I don't like Stace at all on this song. I think he's an interesting vocalist. I'm not sure I like him entirely. I like the screaming aspect is what makes him kind of unique. But as a singer, I'm not too sure about that part of it. Like, what I noticed was that he seemed a little out of sync when the song started. Like, I don't, when you're a vocalist, there's a kind of you're singing along to the rhythm, and there's like some kind of harmonious like gestation there, but not with him. And I don't know, it's just weird. But that was just something that I noticed. Maybe you guys didn't, but it was something that I kind of noted right away. He does a lot of grunts. He does lots of screams. Um, and it's all right. Like the second half of the song gets a bit better because then you get like a kind of a greasy bluesy riff there, which kind of makes the song all right. But I don't think the song is anything that I again would come back to hear. I thought it was all right though, but I agree, Billy. It's better than the first song for sure.
Yeah. I like it. I actually like the vocals on it. Interesting enough, I find it I find the vocals kind of, and Stace brings kind of a darker vocal kind of vibe to it. It's kind of weird because it's not like it's not like a death metal vocal. It's got that death metal guttural feel to it, but it's also clean vocals. So I think it's kind of neat, and the screams are wicked. I mean, on some of the, especially some of the songs coming up, that you're going to get even these kind of Rob Halford type continuous screams. I mean, obviously, hitting the highs, but not as good as Rob Halford, but still up there with that sort of scream. But I like kind of the dark, the chugging guitar, and the drums in the song are good. I think it probably would have been better to start the album off with this song, so you get a vocalized song in there, and then maybe move the instrumental to the middle of the pack. But I like it. It's pretty good. And again, I don't mind his vocals on this. I like the I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of a dark vocal sort of representation, and I kind of like that. It's kind of a mix between a cleaner and a death metal kind of sound, and I definitely like it. I mean, the songs, it's only 3.5 minutes. It's one of the shorter songs on the album, but still not bad. Not one of my favorites on the album for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we head into track number 3, Legacy of Doom, and Ken, take her away.
Yeah, this one I like a bit better. I like the vocals here a bit more for me. There is a lot of solid chugs at the start, which is great. He has that crazy scream halfway through, like holy mackerel! I don't know how he does it, but he's entertaining. I'll say this much about him: he's entertaining for me on this album. The riffs are all right. Like nothing really stands out for me though. I don't know. I think it was okay. But I also, one other thing I noticed is that he screams in the second half of the song, and almost like they add like a little vocal effect there, like on it at the end of the scream, which I think, and they do it a couple times. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I don't know what they were thinking there. I mean, the song is just basically about a vindictive killer, so I guess it kind of works for the title. But it's all right. It's an okay song.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think it's a wicked drum track. And in 20 seconds after the song starts, I find it just really starts to take off, and it's kind of got that buzzsaw, kind of a hammering, just buzzsaw to it. And at that 2-minute mark, that sort of blood curdling scream just sets the song up, and I think it's got a really heavy punk vibe. I mean, some of this is, we talked about earlier about Exciter, being more, I mean, it's a thrash speed metal band, but this falls kind of under quite a bit of speed metal on this as well, too. And I think this song kind of has that bit of a vibe for me. What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Jim. I guess like for me, this is a big step up from the second track. Like I actually find there's going to be tracks 3 to like 7 or so are the better songs here, and the best ones probably up next. But yeah, like again, you. Like it's a bit one-dimensional again, but I justify that by saying these guys, it was 1985. They did 2 albums in 1985, right? So we're not going to get like 1989 like polished thrash, right? So I've always got to remind myself, right? I'm not comparing it to that. So when I go back to that state, I could kind of be happy in a good place for it. But yeah, again, like there's some pretty good riffs and that chugging riff again. But again, that's the common theme through all the tracks. Like I
Mhm.
thought this was a better chorus, like
Mhm.
a little bit more memorable than the last one. And both the music and the vocals get pretty heavy in the chorus and that happens a few times. Usually it's the opposite. You get more melodic, but and yeah, like Jim, I agree with you. I really like the screams at the end. I think they're pretty cool. Yeah, I think like, and what is Dave? Like, what was his nickname again? The sheep or what was
Sheepdog.
that?
Sheep
Sheepdog.
Oh,
sheepdog.
sheepdog. Yeah, yeah, sheepdog.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I don't mind him, right? I think it was
Yeah.
like, is he technically the best singer ever? No, no, he's
No.
No,
definitely
no.
not. But it was fun and like for it goes with the music, right? The music's
Yeah.
straightforward and so his vocals match. So I'm good with that. But yeah, I don't mind it. And the album gets better as we go.
True.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I mean, number 4, Evil Invaders. I'm going to start with this one. I mean, this is one of my favorites on here, the title track. I mean, this has got a wicked. I kind of wrapped it up as if you had Venom, Motorhead, and Slayer kind of all together,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
old school Slayer. And it has that definite old school vibe. And, that scream again at the end. He's got this scream down. And I think Stace is an interesting vocalist. And I kind of very basic, but gets the job done. And I mean, I also think on this track, you've got Dave Carlo's guitars sound so strong, and you're really getting into a real heavy. Again, it's almost kind of like they have this. It has this kind of buzzsaw mentality to this album, where it just keeps going straight and fast, straight and fast, straight and fast, and heavy. And and again, I like his vocals on this one. He's got those clean, but those dark vocals again, very guttural, very angry to some degree, but just really, really cool. I like it. And also, too, this has got a pretty good bass in the song. And
Yeah.
there's another song coming up, and that's, for 1985, I think is pretty commendable, kind of throwing that in there and trying to get that bass groove to really kind of pop with the drums. And I think that's really good. This is one of my top 2 or 3 on this album for sure. Ken, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. This is a really good song. Lyrically, it's one of my favorites because it's about an evil entity that awakens, and they mention rotting corpses in graveyards. So it's almost like they're saying that the dead are coming back, coming
That's
to life.
Ken's thing. That
That's
gets him excited.
Ken's
Yeah, I
favorite
like that.
stuff.
Yeah, I like that. So it's great. So and his vocals match. Like I almost think that there's a slight Dave Mustaine vibe to his vocals because Dave was a really gruff vocalist, especially in the earlier days. I sort of get a little bit of that. I get a little bit of Lemmy sometimes. Like he has a little bit of range. It's not like he's one dimensional. I mean, the scream is great. We all love the scream. Um, but yeah, I think this is a really good song. I like the kind of the middle section where the riff kind of picks up there, and it's a very interesting song overall. And the chorus is great. I like the whole Evil Invaders going back on the chorus. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, I like this song a lot.
Wicked. And Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, I personally think it's the best song they ever wrote. So, I don't know. For me, this is ingrained in my mind, right? Like I would be a kid coming home from school when I was young in Montreal, and in Canada, like our version of MTV was Much Music. So this was on regular rotation, right? Like.
Yeah.
And plus, because they had to do like a certain amount of Canadian content, so you knew this thing was on once a week. You'd be able to watch this video. But yeah, so I just know it so incredibly well. But yeah, that main riff is really addictive. It's pretty
Yeah.
damn cool. This is a good chorus. Like I think it's a simple chorus, right? Like yeah, just shouting evil invaders, but there's that backing vocal that's like an evil or demonic like backing vocal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think
Yeah.
that effect like works
Yeah.
well. I also think the it feels weird to call him sheepdog, so I'm gonna say Steve. Like I find his vocals, I like it on this track. Like the screams are good, but he's a little bit more straightforward and a bit more of an urgent delivery on this. It's a little quicker, and this I think it may have the best guitar lead actually on the album.
Yeah.
One of the two best. So it seems like they put the best of what they had to offer in all the other tracks in this one track. So yeah, for me, it's the I don't know if you guys would agree, but I think it's the best song they ever wrote.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think it's up there. It's up there.
Yeah. Definitely a greatest hit. Just one correction, guys, that I made a mistake at the start. The lineup I read was for the band now. So just a correction.
You mentioned Bob Reed.
Stace McLaren, vocals, Dave Carlo, guitars, Mike Cavalera, bass, and Mike Embro, drums. So just, sorry, kind of read, I had two sets written down and I accidentally read the wrong one. So just wanted to throw that out there just to correct it. So
you just need to know that Bob came after. He's the second vocalist. So
yeah, exactly.
I didn't even notice.
And on top of that, the two, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I would say that, and Dave Carlo, I've seen a ton of interviews with him over the years talking about the band and that, so really, really cool. But yeah, sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
So we're leaving Evil Invaders. We're heading into number 5, Iron Hammer. And Billy, take it away. Iron Hammer.
This is another favorite of mine, along with the previous track. Like I definitely get a Motorhead feel here, and I don't know if this is what you were referring to, Jim, when you said another bass track. But this one's a good bass track for sure, and we're getting both lead bass and lead guitar on the track. So finally, we're getting like some variety on the music side, right? So it's a little bit more expressive versus the others. And then at times the singing is even a bit more melodic, in a weird way. So that's kind of cool. So some decent tempo changes, like it'll slow down and then for the bass line to kick in, and then it sort of takes off quickly again. And so, I think from a songwriting perspective, it's one of their more varied songs. So I appreciate it for that.
And Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, the same as Billy. Like the greasy bass line is what I think makes the song the best for the variation. So you get a little bit of a break here, track number 5. And there's obviously comparisons to Motorhead, and even I think the vocals, you get a slight kind of Lemmy impression a little bit. Like I could see that with the song. It's pretty energetic. It has a lot of nice big tempo changes, especially at the 140 mark, which I like. And then so this is a song where at least they tried to be a bit more inventive as opposed to the other first couple. So yeah, I like this song too.
Absolutely, and I agree with you guys. I mean, this was the other bass song I was talking about. I mean, that solid bass intro is really, really good, and the bass and the guitar play off each other throughout the whole song. And I find his vocals are a little more gritty. They're still got that dark sound, but they're a little bit more gritty in this. And I mean, you can't get much more Motorheady than Iron Hammer. I mean, come on, that just reeks a Motorhead song. So you gotta play it like you read it. So definitely, and I think it also has kind of a bit of an old school Metallica groove to it. Especially maybe it's the bass line, from a Kill 'Em All, even a Ride the Lightning era a little bit in my mind anyways. So,
and Jim, I'm having a mind blank, but 1985, what was the Metallica album out in 85?
That would have been, I think it was Kill 'Em All was out what, 83, and then
Ride the Lightning?
Ride the Lightning, yeah.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah. So, and then 86 would have been Master of Puppets. Yeah. So this would have been just, these guys would have been exactly at the same time. And it's funny you brought that interview up about Lars. Interesting that he would have criticized that for this band and this album. Kind of interesting, that's all. Especially later in their career as they continued along with Metallica. So.
Yeah, there's some pretty bad drum sounds on some of those albums.
Absolutely. So we're now heading into the side B in the old days. If this was, well, I guess you could still have the vinyl today. So, Instant Death. This is the shortest track at only almost just under 3 minutes at 2 minutes and 57. The vocals on this one I really, really like. I think it's probably one of the best vocalized songs that are on the album. And I mean, it's just got a wicked thrash intro. And it's just like you guys said, from the first instrumental, kind of didn't blow us away on track 2, started picking things up on track 3, really did it on track 4, went in a different direction in track 5, and then kind of maybe aligned themselves back to where they were, with maybe Instant Death, but definitely a heavy, strong, fast song. Billy, we'll continue with you.
Yeah, no, I like it too. I agree. Vocally, it's one of the better tracks. I like the chorus. It's a strong chorus. The riffing I find a bit more like speed metal style riffing, as opposed to thrash in the track. But one thing I find here, like, do you guys hear it? Like the riffs that are being played on the music at like the 1 minute mark, and again as we approach the 2 minute mark, it totally sounds like Motley Crue from like the first album.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like they ripped it off. Like, again, I forget my dates and what came first, and so like I don't know, but like it's a complete like Motley Crue duplicate. Old Motley Crue when they were good.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's good. I like it. And another killer scream to close the track as well.
Great. And Ken, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's I like it. I like it as well. I guess it has a catchy chug, so you get hooked in right at the start of the song, which I think is great. I think at 2 minutes, like a little over 2 minutes, it's perfect timing for the song. And I like it as well. It's I don't have much to say about it. I mean, lyrically, they wanted to write a little bit about the reliance of how humans use too much technology, so it's kind of interesting. So they kept it short, kept it short and sweet. Yeah, and it's all right.
Wicked. Yeah, I mean, there's not, with that song, it's not totally, there's nothing groundbreaking here. It's just kind of continuing with the vein of the album, which is great. But yeah, we lead into track 7 here, Cutthroat, and Ken, you continue along.
Yeah, see, I like this song. This song is like one of my favorites on the album.
I knew you would.
Yeah, because it's a clever song, because like it has a really catchy chug at the start, and it stays for the vocals. I like it. I think he's really good here, and I like how it picks up some speed, like at the 150 mark, and it's just, you get the riff, and then you get these really nice, interesting lyrics about the idea of cutting oneself to symbolize your, like, I guess, yourself editing and trying to understand yourself by cutting yourself. So it's kind of a weird song. Yeah, are they talking about suicide? I don't know. But I like that moment of the song. I like the chug and the scream that started out the song at the 40-minute mark. That's so great. Yeah, this is a really good song, and the chorus too. I like the whole cutthroat that he screams when he does the first part of the chorus. He has that scream that he adds, so it's just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So chorus, scream, you get your little effect there. But yeah, this is a really good song too.
Wicked. And Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, like for me, this is probably my second favorite after Evil Invaders. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, Evil Invaders, I know so well. Like I said, watching the music video. But when I was prepping for the podcast, the one song I kept hitting repeat again was on this one, like Cutthroat. Like I just love yeah, it's a great song. Like honestly, I think Ken kind of hit on like every sort of exact point I had. I like the chorus. Like one of the best. It's simple again, but it's really effective, and there's like that echo effect, like when he does Cutthroat, like that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think it's good, right? Like it's and that scream like at the end is just like Oh my God, it just goes right through you. But it kind of works well with the track. So yeah, I think it's great. Like it's really memorable. Another example is one of their better examples of songwriting.
Yeah, and I think you guys hit it on the head. I mean, I like the guitar solo in this too. There is one, and but yeah, that echo effect, like you were saying, I love that right around Cutthroat. I mean, that's wicked, and the scream's amazing. Yeah, it's a great song. I mean, you guys hit on every part of it. I find it's got a really cool groove to it, and again, like we're talking, and I know Razor is an interesting. Like a lot of their albums are very like they sound very similar to the sort of their recipe of what they do, their formula of what they do. But I find this one changes off a little bit from how some of the album has. We've talked about a couple of songs that have changed a little bit. This definitely is one that isn't just a regular speed thrash kind of attack. It's just, I mean, it is super heavy, but definitely has some different, excuse me, some different elements to it as well. So we head into track number 8, Speed Merchants. So, Billy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, no, so I don't think it's as strong as the previous couple, but it's still like a solid. They're getting a bit more back into the like the standard song here, right? There's not as much variety. Like in a way, I do find at times it has a Metallica feeling a little bit here, but again, it gets a bit more into like the same vein and just kind of continues on with it. So again, yeah, like I don't mind it. And we're sounding a bit stale, but again, like the screams, right? Like on this one, he has another wallop at the end of this track again, right? It's like spine tingling, like when you listen to that thing. But yeah, like a solid track, but like this is not one of the better ones for me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, that's like like a 20 to 30-second scream at the end, and he just he keeps it going, and then he's kind of tapers off, and then he just keeps it going again. So it's pretty neat. I mean, this is definitely the speediest, fastest song I would say on the album, but I think that's what it was, what it was meant to be. This is like, okay, we're just gonna kind of go forward. I still think one of my favorites is coming up. But yeah, this is definitely would be if towards the back end of the album for me. Absolutely, if I was to rank all the songs. So, Ken, what's your thoughts on Speed Merchants?
I like this song. I like the monster chug at the start, so it has a really good beginning. But I like the lyrics because I like the fact that they use he equates the ideas that warriors at night. So it's about a street gang. So I love it. I love the chorus. I love the fact that it has kind of a proto punk kind of vibe to it. It's great. I really like the song. Pretty much. I mean, it's standard. I think we're.
Oh,
Oh,
I think we might have lost Ken.
We've got a frozen Ken. All right. Well, I guess, did you talk to this one already, Jim?
I did a bit, but I'll zip back through it there and just, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think speed kills and the song is fast. And I mean, it's got great guitar work in it, but like I said, probably not one of my favorites. If I was to again rank it, it would be towards the back end of the album for me. So,
Okay.
And I agree with you, Billy. But I love the fact that Ken. I gotta hear what he has to say because Ken's talking about the street gang kind of mentality, and then that's wicked. So.
You can hear us, Ken?
I'm back.
Okay, you're back. Perfect.
I cut out for like a second and I was like, okay. So, but I'm here.
Cool.
Keep on going, Ken.
We're doing what, track 9?
Oh, we were still on Speed Merchants 8. Anything?
Okay.
You want
Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. It was like it had a kind of a proto punk vibe to it for me. That's what I liked about it. But yeah, it's an okay song. I don't mind it.
What do you think of the long scream though at the end?
Yeah, that's great. Like that's just the accent, like the cherry on top of the on the sundae, like perfect.
Yeah, no. So track 9, Tortured Skull. I mean,
Yes.
This is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Ken, you lead us off, Ken, because judging by the smile on your face, I think you like this one.
Oh yeah. This is a great song. This is like it's all about the idea of about enslaved, like how violence enslaves people. And I think the way they handle the vibe here, oh, the scream, it's so great. He has a scream at the start. He gets a little bit excessive with the scream, I thought, a little bit, but that's okay because I like the fact that the lyrics are all about, the tortured skull, bruised and beaten, enslaved with lust and steel. I love that. That's like it's like poetry to my ears. It's so great. And then it pulls back at the 3 minute mark, and then it revs back up again. You get that intensity with the riff. I love it. I think this is a great song. Even the last half of the song, wow, it's just crazy. And the screams, whoo, awesome.
Yeah, this was the one I wrote down, kind of Halford screams. I mean, nobody screams like Halford, but if anybody's going to be close, this was fairly close. I mean, it's almost like every second song's got a really good, but this one has that real. And I like when you brought up the point about how it pulls back and then keeps going. I like the fact that it took them to almost the 9th song here to try maybe a little bit of a directional change. And I wish they kind of maybe incorporated that into some of the more earlier songs, because it really worked out. This is one of my top 3 and probably even my 1A. This is an amazing song. And, it shares off that bass and guitar intro again. And I really, really like that. And, the guitar on this is just phenomenal. And that's, I love this song. And, Billy, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. This is probably my number 3, I guess, on the record. So this is the longest song by far, right? 5.5 minutes. So I go to where Ken went, right? Like the end of towards the end of the song, right? Like it kicks in at about the 250 mark, and it's the musical section that goes all the way to 420. Like there's some great riffs in there, as a really good like guitar lead, some good shredding. That's like some of the best on the album for sure. Again, you guys already said it, but when Stace shouts like tortured skull at the beginning and then he ends shouting the same thing again. So yeah, I think the intensity is a little more dialed up when this is going strong, this track. So yeah, I think it's like the 3rd best track, so I like it.
Well, wicked. Yeah, it's a great one. So we're heading into the last final song, and I don't know. What are your guys' thought on Thrash Dance? I mean, we're ending off the album here. I feel quickly that I think it's ending off on a high. I like this song. I love the name of it. I mean, it's throwing it out there. It's Thrash Dance. Flashdance was probably big at the time. I don't know the movie, but anyways, this is wicked. I think it's got a wicked thrash groove. Definitely an old school Slayer vibe from maybe the first album or even their live EP. I mean, it just sounds so good. Again, the screamy vocals, and I love the thrash dance. The chorus on it, the heavy chorus is really, really good. And I think it's an awesome end to a really good album. I mean, this is their second full studio album. And I think this just kind of tops it off in style, where maybe I thought, and I know you guys thought as well, a bit of a kind of a slow start to it with the instrumental. But I think this definitely, in my mind, makes up for it. Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a good way to end it. I do agree. I like the fact that when I was going through the lyrics, it's like they're talking about the idea that's a thrash dance. So like all the thrashers gather, they're all fueled up by adrenaline and aggression. So it's like a standard kind of trope for a lot of thrash bands of this era, talking about this kind of stuff. But it has a nice chugging speed at the start. There is a solid chug like all the way through it. I like the 2 minute mark on and 2:10 mark on. I think that's really good. And Stace's vocals are pretty good here. I don't know if this is a standout for him on the album, but this is an okay song. But it ends off on a good bang, I would think.
Billy, your thoughts on Thrash Dance?
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. I think you pretty much hit on it, right? There's not a lot of like tempo changes and
Yeah.
crazy, I mean, it does what it's meant to do, right? Go out on a bang. So yeah, some great riffs, some a good guitar lead here. The chorus is pretty cool. Yeah, no complaints on my end. I think it's a good way to end.
Wicked, wicked. Well, that's the album in a nutshell, guys. So,
38 minutes.
yeah, exactly. Have any of you guys seen them live? I haven't seen them live.
No, I have not seen him. I
I've
don't think
I
they.
oh sorry.
No, good,
Oh,
Billy.
you go ahead, Ken. Finish off.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I don't think they've played a lot of live shows, at least not in the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I don't think.
Yeah.
But you've seen them, Billy, though, live?
Yeah, I've actually only seen them once.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Quite a while ago, but I do remember being incredibly excited again when Evil Invaders came on. I think I was probably singing an old track. Uh, but yeah, no, like I don't remember a lot of what they played. Like it was a long time ago that I seen them. But yeah, I remember it being very good.
Cool. Well, you know
Wicked.
what's sad about Dave Carlo though is he's going blind.
Oh,
He's
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's practically blind. And so apparently he can play. I guess he's learned a pattern of how to play the guitar, but so he can still play live. But yeah, apparently he's going blind, which I thought was kind of sad. It was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But it's some kind of condition or illness that he's contracted over the last, I think, 10 years or so. So I think that's kind of sad.
Yeah,
Um, it's sad. But I mean, I didn't, you know what though? I actually liked the last album, Cycle of Contempt. I think it's great. It
Mhm.
had some really, really good funny songs on it, the way it was handled. And I remember when Robert from the Metal Meltdown, he reviewed it and tore it apart. And I'm like, and so I in the comments, I actually roasted the guy. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? I I physically I actually unsubscribed from his channel because I got so angry with, like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, he's trying to say that, well, they're nothing like the classic era. Well, obviously not. That they're old men. They're not gonna retain that youthful energy. But it doesn't mean it's a bad album for any
Yeah.
stretch of the imagination.
Mm.
But yeah, it's like funny. But yeah, but going back to Dave, it's kind of sad that he's actually going blind.
Yeah, I don't
And I
think.
bel-
Yeah, I didn't mind the last album. I thought it was okay. I bought it, but
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing like a tour or anything for that though. Or maybe I just missed it, but I didn't see anything.
I think
well,
they did a couple of shows somewhere. You were saying that, weren't you, Jim?
yeah, I know they did one at the. I think they did a like a co-headline. Skullfist was there, and same with Whiplash. But I believe Dave's wife. He's been going through a rough time. I
Oh,
believe he lost his wife to cancer. So
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
so I think that
Mm.
really sidelined, right around. I'm not sure if it was right around the release of the new album, but it was either right around that time. So I think that this poor Dave, he's gone through a lot. So and now
Hmm.
I didn't realize that he was actually going blind, which was just
Yeah,
wow. That blows my mind. Really, send our prayers out to him and his family. I mean, that's just terrible. But and I agree. The last album I thought was really, really good. I liked it,
yeah.
and I mean, you guys. I mean, the cover art of the albums is fantastic. I mean,
Yes, yes. The cover's great. Yes.
Razor never really holds back, and we were talking about the old Exodus artwork from like some of the earlier albums where it looked, it was just pictures of the band or even the creator artwork for Extreme Aggression, and then you've got Razor's always got really really cool album art. So
Yeah, yeah. What do you think of the last song on the album? I love that song.
yeah, it's wicked. The whole, I think it definitely an aggressive album, and I think with probably at the time of what he's been going through. I mean, I'm hoping that I'm glad to hear that he's working through it. His situation there.
As far as I
Hopefully,
understand, yeah,
yeah. That's too bad. But no, the album I thought was really good, and I got
yeah,
a copy of it. Like everybody gets a copy of a Razor album because you just know it's
yeah.
going to be a kick-ass thrash assault. So you just go for it.
Well, it's much different than from Decibels from '97. It's way,
Yeah.
way different than that. I didn't mind Decibels. I thought it was all right, but I like this album because it felt like a kind of return to form a little bit. Just going back to that kind of go for the gusto style of music. But
Well, when did Stace leave? He left what, early 90s? Like
early
90?
90s, yeah, it was
Yeah.
like 92, 90. I think Bob comes in at 93. So
Yeah.
Bob sang on the Decibels album.
Right. Right.
But they have good albums. If you go back to like Shotgun Justice,
Yeah.
if you go
that's a
back
good
to
one.
that's a great one. Violent Restitution is good. Open Hostility. They had a good
Malicious Intent. Yeah.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. They have a good chunk of albums where it's really strong, well written stuff. So it's like so you can see where they started from and then where they went to. So
Right. And you think changing lead singers in the early 90s too. Oh man, everything was up in the air at that point when it came to I honestly, I think thrash and death metal is what kind of kept the metal genre going through maybe those grungy years, and then it pushed through, I think. But yeah, definitely. This is my favorite. Okay. This is my favorite. What do you guys like? I mean, we're not going to rank. Our idea wasn't to rank their catalog, but would you say this is probably is it your guys' favorite album? It's my favorite album. I love it. And I think for me, because I came into it, I had a friend give it to me. Like, I think right in when it came out, I remember he actually worked at a record store, and he said, "Oh, Jimmy, you got to go check this band out." And I'd never heard their first album, so I picked this up with just looking at the album cover, and I was like, "Oh man," I was blown away when I got it. I was like, "Yeah, this is heavy," Kind of had that same feeling of maybe not as puzzled feeling as I had when I picked up my first Voivod, but it was kind of the same sort of thing. So.
Yeah, this album is not mine. Like, I like it, and it was the first album I heard from Razor, but I'm more of I'm kind of more into like Shotgun Justice and Open Hostility. I like that just those couple albums where they were really, really strong with the thrash. But that would be my pick.
What about you, Billy?
It's this or Shotgun Justice would be the some of the more recent ones I lost track of. Like I bought the last one they did more out of curiosity, but I hadn't heard like the one or two before that.
Yeah, Decibels is the one from '97. It's not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Open Hostility, actually, I don't even think I've heard, to be honest.
Oh, that's a great album. I love that album.
Okay.
Great. Well, we got an interesting, I think, Billy, you brought it up earlier in the podcast that we decided in kind of honor, all three of us are Canadian, celebrating Canada Day this week. So we would come up with we didn't want to just go with our top 10 metal albums. We wanted to go with just our top 10 thrash albums for each of us. So who wants to go first? One of you two guys. Who wants to go first? Who's up?
Sure. I'll go first.
Okay. Perfect. Ken.
All right. So remember, it's top 10 thrash.
Thrash.
There's a lot of stuff. I ended up with death, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull it. It's not, I didn't even go, like I was pretty strict with the rule.
Okay, cool. All right. So I don't really, even though it's 1 to 10, the ranking isn't that important to me. But
no, just 10. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what I think. So I'll start with Mel Havoc. Their first release, the album is called The Release, 1990. I don't know if you know the band, but I know Jimmy very well. Jimmy Lamort, who's he's the mastermind behind the band. Toronto band. They started on the Epidemic Records. Their first album is strictly more thrash, but as the later releases, they move into more industrial metal. And as you know, I'm a huge industrial metal fan, so I love their music for that reason. Jimmy's also he's a movie buff. He's a horror fan. I used to see Jimmy all the time at TIFF, at the Toronto National Film Festival. He was always there. And he was reading a lot of the same horror novels that I was reading in the 80s. So I think that's why I connected with him. He's a pretty cool dude. This album is pretty solid. It's like Age of Desire. He did a song based on a Clive Barker short story. He's got a song called the Dunwich Horror Dread. This is a really good album. It's one of my favorite albums. They don't get talked a lot now. Jimmy still does Mal Havoc, but it's independent now. He doesn't have a label, so it's kind of shitty. Number 9, I'm putting a band that I'm not sure if anyone knows much about them, but this is a band called Splatterpunk. They released one album in 1992. It's called This Infinite God ... They were a band from 1990 to 1994. So it's basically thrash crossover. Billy, you might actually like this. It's thrash crossover with a definite twist to technical kind of progressive thrash. Very interesting.
It's actually been sitting on my list for like 15 years as a band.
Oh, really has? Okay, so
I never got around. My list is like humongous.
Yeah, it's you won't find it because it's out of print. But I have it both on cassette and CD, which is
wow,
pretty good. Yeah, they're from Oshawa, Ontario. It's too bad that they only put out one album. Like the two main guys were brothers. One was on bass, one was on guitar. Yeah, this is a really good album. If you can find it, search it out. I'm not sure if it's on like YouTube or Spotify, but I actually like this album. I think it's pretty creative. There's like nods to Sacred Reich, a little bit of the Exhorter. Yeah, I think this is a really good album. It's just too bad they only put out the one.
So it's what's the name of the album again, Ken?
This Infinite God.
Okay, perfect. ...
Yeah, from 1992.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, if you can find it, go for it if you can. But it's it's long out of print, so good luck if you can find it. But if you do, let me know. I'd be very curious
Absolutely.
if you guys find it and hear it, because I'd be curious. Next, I'll put on Entropy, their first album, Ashen Existence, 1992. I love these guys. Technical thrash. You know, they're from Brampton, Ontario. This first album is pretty solid, like Darkness Weaves, Necrothon, Machine's Way. This is a pretty solid album. The only thing about them I'll say is they kind of went to more groove metal after this first release. But if you can find this album, which I think you can, actually you can get it from the band, because I've spoken to Jerry a bunch of times about it, so you can probably get it through them.
You can get it on Amazon too.
You can? Okay, yeah.
I think they've redone it. I think it's been redone. Yeah.
I think maybe Dive Bomb did that. They're like a really cool CD company out of the US that does like very rare and unknown like metal bands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I had an original cassette copy, which I gave to Jerry the last time that they played Toronto. They played the show. I gave it to him. He was so excited. He was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this!" Because he doesn't own like the demo. It was a cassette demo of their first. I think a couple of the first songs. So
wicked.
Yeah, he was pretty happy to have that. So now I'm going to go to Razor. I'm going to be putting on Shotgun Justice from 1990. Album number 6. So this is actually, I believe this is Bob Reed. I think he does sing on this one. Good album, all killer, no filler. It's got great songs like Hatred, Meaning of Pain, Stabbed in the Back, the title track, Shotgun Justice. This is a great album. I love this album. It's like serious thrash. They kick ass. That's all I gotta say about that one. Next, I'm going to go to another band that's one album, and it's kind of a shame, but and I know you probably both know Slaughter, who put out Strapedo back in 1987, Dave Houston's death thrash band. Interesting band. Like I like this band quite a bit. I mean, this is obviously where Chuck came from Florida to join them and then left them because he didn't like what they were doing. They had an interesting style. They are one of the bands credited for helping to create the death metal genre. They do get credit for that, I guess, because of the connections to Chuck. What I would think. I like this album a lot. It has really killer artwork. I think I even have the cover here. Yeah, it has really like nasty artwork.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love it. This is
I've seen
great.
that.
Yeah, it's a great cover. I can't find who the artist is, but I love it. This is a great cover. So good. And they put out one album. They eventually from my understanding, I've spoken to Dave before. Dave had mentioned that they got screwed around by the music industry, so they dropped the band, and then he created a new band called Strapato, which they put out one album afterwards. But he then they folded. So basically, Dave is now just like, you can see him. He's always on Facebook, and he's always peddling like new merch for Slaughter. So he's always got like a new demo out, or he's got patches or stuff like that. So
Cool.
it's too bad he doesn't go back to like playing music, but that's a good album. And of course, next I'll go to Voivod. So Killing Technology from 1987. I love this album. This is so great to me. It's like,
Yeah.
Ravenous Medicine, Overreaction, Forgotten in Space. Great album. The title track. I love this album. Solid stuff. And then I'll go to the standard Alice, Annihilator, Alice in Hell from 1989. It has to be on there. It's a classic standard thrash album. I know we talked about this album on the Metal Pit, one of their podcasts, but
Right.
this is a good album. Liaja, Wicked Mystic, great. Alice in Hell, what a great album. And then I'm putting on Sacrifice. So for me, it'll always be Forward to Termination, 1987.
Oh yeah.
They formed in '83. This is their second album. They were on Diabolic Force at the time. They had that big hit Reanimation because the video was always on Much Music. I remember that so much. I love that video. They had the song The Entity on this one, Forever Enslaved, Flames of Armageddon, Terror Strikes. A lot of really, really good solid songs on this album for me. And then the last one I'll have is Overthrow, Within Suffering from 1990. This is a one album band again, but solid stuff. Nick Sagius, you can see Nick. He's always on Facebook all the time. Nick he's an interesting fellow. He's got his new band, Tribe of Pazuzu, which is a really good, like, nasty death metal band. If you haven't heard it, check those guys out. But this album is really good. They're from Scarborough, Ontario. They had some really good songs on this first album as well. The cover art is great. I love that cover. I think I even have that here too. I do. Yeah, I love this cover. This is such a great. Yeah, Billy's got it too. So I know Billy bought. Yeah, Billy bought the vinyl. Love this album. Yeah, fantastic stuff. So yeah, that's my top 10. So I was looking for a lot of bands that I like. That I know they just one album, but yeah, this bands that I always remembered and still listen to like to this day.
Wicked. Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, I Billy, why don't you take it away with your list?
Yeah, no, we have one overlap, and I just showed it. So, but yeah, so like a lot of these I've shown like on What's Spinning or in other of our top lists, right? Like I'm always trying to promote the albums I love, so it's not a surprise when we do a top Canadian and I pull some of these back out again. So there's only one I don't have a visual aid for, but I have it on CD, but my CDs are all out of order, so I can never find it. So that was 1987 Aggression, the full treatment. So growing up in Montreal in the 80s, I mean, they were one of the bands on the scene in the mid 80s. So really liked them. Canadian Thrash, really cool. They tended to do a lot of like crossover and punk in their music as well, particularly this album. And again, I don't have the artwork, but it's like a crazy artwork
That's cool
on the cover. Yeah. And they're still releasing great stuff, right? Like I did a review of the last album, Frozen Aggressors, and I thought it was really cool.
Great album.
Like, the band leader, Sasquatch, he's probably the only guy left, Denis, but he now lives in Vancouver, interestingly. And he's, often on Sea of Tranquility or a couple of those other shows. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Number 9 is one I recently showed as well. Infernal, Majesty, None Shall Divide. So yeah, really like thrash metal gem, kind of underrated. Then I go to number 8. I already showed this. So I was a latecomer to this. I only like I think Ken, you mentioned it when I first met you,
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's
maybe a
right.
year ago, and then by coincidence I found it at a festival. So yeah, I love it. Like it's amazing. This one I actually just showed last week. I didn't know we were going to be doing a top 10 list,
Dioxin.
but Dioxin, just brilliant, like technical thrash. My number 6. I'm different than you guys. This has always been my clear favorite.
Okay.
Sacrifice
Oh, I
Soldier.
like that album too.
It's on my
Like,
list.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's a
I
good
know
album.
everyone's usually always gonna pick like Torment of Fire or Forward Determination, and I
Mhm.
love those albums. But to me, this is like this is my favorite.
Well,
Uh,
it's more polished. It's a
for
way
sure.
more
Yeah,
polished album.
yeah, hands down. Yeah. Then of course actually you had this too, Ken. So we
Yep.
had two matches there. And then I just adore
Yeah,
this
Universe. Yeah,
album,
good album.
Universe, DBC, and then right along those lines again, the most criminally underrated
Hmm.
Oblivion album from this day forward. It's a 1990, but I remember buying this demo, watching them in Montreal in the like 88 maybe or early 89. All these songs were mostly on the demo going back that far. Uh, Then I got I had it upside down.
Boy, boy.
Voivod. I got two Voivod. So Dimension
That's
Hatros
right.
is kind of the one where they really started going in the a little bit more of the technical and progressive
And
way.
melodic.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like I love it. And then I guess right along those lines, my favorite Voivod album has always been
Yeah, that's awesome too.
this
Yeah.
thing, right? I brought
Yep.
this in so many different shows on different lists, but obviously they're most progressive and they deviate, but still lots of thrash in here for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And technicality, really good stuff. Maybe not the Pink Floyd cover, but so yeah, those are my 10.
Well,
Wicked.
before you go, Jim, I just realized I only gave you guys 9. I didn't give you
Oh,
10.
give us a
So
10.
I got the 10, yeah. So um Varga is my last one from their album Prototype from 1993. Um they were a pretty big band. They actually signed to a really major label for a while. They were on BMG. They actually opened for Metallica back in the early 90s for a time. So they that's their claim to fame. But they had that song "Freeze Don't Move," was a pretty big song. It was on MTV. Much Music, all the time. They I guess this band is technically thrash, but industrial thrash. Again, that's probably the reason why I like them so much. I've seen them many times live. This is pretty solid release if you're into that kind of stuff, because some people don't like the thrash elements the industrial elements to it, but I think it's a great album.
Wicked. No, I wasn't even counting. So, but that's a great
Yeah, it was
pick.
9. I just realized like, oh, I had one more. I missed it.
Well, I've got kind of a mix between you guys. I mean, to start off with mine, I think I have 3 Voivod on here.
Cool.
I've got Dimension Hatros. That's my favorite Voivod album, but it's also one of my, God, I think it definitely be in my top 10 thrash albums. I mean, I'm a huge Voivod fan. I think by this album, they had, they were really just, I mean, each album was getting, production wise, was getting better and better and better. Although I really like War and Pain, the sort of ferocity and the sort of muddiness of it. And it was the first, I mean, I remember seeing the video and I remember listening to the album. I got the album. I don't even know where I got the cassette from, but bought it just on the look of Away's, it's pretty much Korgel the Exterminator on there. And Dimension Hatros is awesome. By this time, they were a full-fledged, this is a thrash metal act and they're just ripping it. And then I have to go with Nothing Face. I mean, I love Nothing Face. what a change from Dimension Hatros to Nothing Face. I mean, it was like, wow, what's going on here? But it wasn't a bad wow, what's going on here. It was an even better, like really getting into more of a progressive sound. And I just, this band was just starting, like, again, they had hit the ground and now they were just running past everybody. And that's one of my favorites. But Killing Technology, 1987, probably from the first three albums. I mean, Roar's wicked. And like I say, War and Pain, but again, by the third album, these guys were just they were just finding their sound and becoming that entity. I think this album like sold 60,000 copies or something in the first couple of months, which, for a Voivod, that's pretty damn good. I mean, Hatros continued that, and then of course Nothing Face just blew it away, and they become a worldwide a little bit more. That was kind of their black album, but not black album, so to speak. Alice in Hell, Annihilator. I've got two Annihilator albums on here. I got that one, and I've got Never Neverland. I mean, I go back and forth between these two albums, which one's actually my favorite, but I'm going to give it, Alice in Hell right now. I mean, and what's great is Annihilator did that live stream where some of these songs they hadn't played since the 80s. So, it was really cool. And, but Never Neverland's a strong album as well. I absolutely love it. Entropy, Ash in Existence. It's hilarious you brought that up. Huge Entropy fan, have all their albums. This one's good, and I think I have the newer copy. I think I got the newer copy, which is kind of a re-release. So, so that's definitely, if pick it up. It's a great album, and no, it's just awesome. I've got two Sacrifice on here. So I've got Forward Determination, 1987, and Soldiers of Misfortune. I mean, that's an amazing album. But I got to be honest, any album, I could have filled it with all their albums on here. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands. They're phenomenal. And I got to see them play, I think it would have been right after the Megadeth concert. I think maybe it was a year ago or a year and a half ago here locally. So they put on a great show. So they were absolutely awesome. Razor, I've got, and that's, Razor's one of my favorite. Evil Invaders is one of my favorite albums. It was my first one I got from them. I just super love it. And I added I added this when I did my list up on the weekend. Billy had brought up Oblivion. I think maybe, I don't know when he brought it up. He brought it up in a news. I think maybe one of our first podcasts. And so anyways, obviously I seeked them out. From This Day is an amazing album, an amazing band. I'm ordering their albums. I don't have anything by them. And I have, in full transparency, I didn't know anything really about them. I think I've heard of them before with the spelling difference from Oblivion to Oblivion. And I never really even picked up on their music at all. But Billy brought that out, I think, on the first one or two in his news where they were re-releasing all the catalog. And this album is freaking awesome. I mean, it's just that good. It has to be in my top list. So, and that's 10 of my albums, not in any order, just 10 of them. And a lot of duplicate bands there, but what can you do?
Can I do three honorable mentions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go for it.
So on the Canadian Thrash side, Raider, Trial by Chaos.
Oh, good one.
They're like
That is a good
definitely
one.
thrash, but definitely some death metal in there as well. Another one, I think maybe from Calgary. Don't quote me on that. The band Hazard. Review. Has a really cool album cover too. I should have pulled that one. And the other one was Terrifier, Weapons of Thrash Destruction are sort of three that I couldn't quite fit on there, but I liked them a lot.
Yeah, that's
great.
A good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, no, Raiders actually really good. They're awesome. I mean, that's what a great band. I think they're from Ontario, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're living in like Toronto now.
Yeah. no, those guys are pretty tight, and I mean, they've been touring like crazy. So I mean, their latest album was really really great. So yeah, no, wicked band for sure. So
But there's a couple others you could add. You could add like Mastery. Do you guys know them?
no,
Yeah, they're
not
another
familiar.
a Toronto band. They have like three albums out. You should check them out. They're pretty good too. Their first album actually is no vocals. It's all instrumentals. They didn't have a vocalist at the time, but they're pretty solid. And then one Billy that you might know, they're from Montreal or Quebec, I think. Reanimator. Do you know them, Billy?
Yeah.
I actually I was fighting between them and Aggression to put where to take my 10th spot.
Because they're pretty solid. I really liked Ignorance is No Excuse. I thought it was a pretty decent. Yeah, they're a pretty good band, and they're still making albums. They just put one out like just recently.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree, Billy. Aggression's awesome, and that latest album was really really good.
Yeah.
I liked the review you did for them. Those guys are awesome. So really solid band for sure. So.
And what about Mortillery? That's another modern kind of Canadian thrash band.
Yeah,
they're good.
There's a few. I know we stuck to more like the standards, but there are still, a handful of good like modern Canadian thrash bands that are playing music.
Oh yeah, and I mean I could have even thrown like I didn't want to put Exciter on this list, although I don't we don't need a ton of hate mail. They're thrash, but I kind of chalk them in a little bit more into the speed metal. I think they kind of almost invented speed metal, especially here in Canada. So a lot of people think Voivod's first album maybe a little bit more speed metal, but I disagree with that. I think it's a lot more thrashy. But I could have easily put like Heavy Metal Maniac on that, or any of the Exciters is really really good stuff as well. So, but yeah. So that's it, guys. So we're at the end of the show. It was a great time. I think we can announce. Ken, do you want to announce the next podcast?
Sure. So we decided to do Machine Head, the debuted album "Burn My Eyes," which has an awesome album cover art. So that's so great from 1994. So tune in for that.
Jeez, that's relatively modern for us.
Yeah. Very true. Very, very true.
You guys have anything else to add, guys?
No, I'm all good.
No, I don't think so.
Great.
It was a good conversation.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And with that, we'll say good night to everybody.
Good night.
All right, good night.